Oliver. Oliver, if you've been around, you know Oliver. If you haven't been around, you've probably touched something Oliver has had some influence in.
I thought you said you were going to say
That's completely up to you. So with 19 years of UX consulting to some of Australia's top companies, it's likely that you have come across something Ollie has influenced. As well, he's the Director of Design and Innovation at Mobile Experience. His clients have included Qantas, Telstra, Optus, Atlassian, NRMA, ABC, Museum of Contemporary Art, Commonwealth Bank, and Westpac. I think you've got another bank to add to that, maybe. He loves working with startups as well to help them achieve their dreams, especially in the IoT and wearable space across health, agriculture, and automotive. He's an international conference speaker, advisory board member, mentor, teaches interaction design at Sydney University, and is our next speaker. Everyone, please welcome Ollie Weidlich. Which is generally a good thing to try. Do a 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's flashing.
Yeah, looks good.
Yep.
The wand.
Is that
Oh, yours,
green?
sir.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Lisa and Macquarie Bank, for having us, and everyone here for coming along. Tonight we're going to talk about intelligent agents. I don't need 3 of these, so I'll just put these out of my way. And of course you. So why don't we all stand up? Sorry, it won't be too interactive, but we'll start off with something. Let's all stand up. If you've got an intelligent agent of some kind, so Siri or Cortana, and stay standing. If you don't have an intelligent agent in your life, sit down. For most of you. If you interact with your intelligent agent at least a few times a week, stay standing. If you don't, sit down. Okay. If your intelligent agent is Cortana, sit down. There's no one. Oh, one. If your intelligent agent is Alexa, sit down. If your intelligent agent is Siri, sit down. And if your intelligent agent is Google Assistant. And those remaining, Mark. Nobody's got any ones I haven't heard? Good. Okay, good stuff. So just quickly, and we'll always start with the definition so we know what we're talking about, but really, you know, this intelligent agent, what we'll be talking about today is really software agents, specifically. So we'll go in and talk about those, but that's the high level positioning. And what I want to talk about today is where has this come from? What's the inspiration for this whole intelligent agent thing? The initiation, how to get started, and how have most of you maybe had your first experiences with an intelligent agent? Interaction, so you know, what do you actually do to engage with these things, and how does that work? And we'll come up with we'll look at some of the issues that we're certainly experiencing today at this point in the rollout of this stuff. The identity, so the personality and the factors behind these intelligent agents, the impact that they're having, and what's coming up, what's coming down the pipe. That's quite interesting as well. Who was here for Jerry Gaffney's talk last time? Okay, so Jerry mentioned a couple of aspects through his talk on mobile about intelligent agents, so we'll expand on that today. So the inspiration, you know, where did all this come from? So, you know, certainly in the early days, it was this science fiction of how do we interact with computers and technology. We started with the Star Trek computer and being able to talk with that. Of course, there was Hal and the rich interactions, and you get a sense of Hal's personality and his sentence, right? That becomes evident, obviously, throughout the movie. Has anyone not seen 2001? No? Okay, cool. There's the Navigator, Knowledge Navigator. Has anyone not seen this? The Apple video? Okay, there's a few of you. I'll play a little bit. It's really low res, right? This is Apple in the 80s. 87.
You have 3 messages. Your graduate research team in Guatemala, just checking in. Robert Jordan, a second semester junior, requesting a second extension on his term paper. And your mother reminding you about your father's
surprise birthday party next Sunday.
Today you have a faculty lunch at 12 o'clock. You need to take Kathy to the airport by 2. You have a lecture at 4:15 on deforestation in the Amazon rainforest.
Right. Let me see the lecture notes from last semester.
Anyway, you get the sense of it, right? It's a great video. Came out in '87. And one of the things that this video really did, and if you haven't explored that whole area of design fiction, it's really a fascinating opportunity. And we're lucky enough to do a bunch of this stuff for clients, where we go and look at how to explore the future and explore future interactions by creating a future and testing it out. And also, more closely than that, with things like wearables and so on, we're trying to do exploratory things like the yoga pants that we worked on, which have sensor wire woven through them and haptic feedback, jerseys for the Super Bowl that gave you different information through haptics and so on. So it gives us an opportunity to go and see how people might react and respond and interact with technology in interesting ways. And who hasn't, Mary. You want to take the call? I can start. Who hasn't seen Her? So, Lisa. Yeah. Her is this, as you all know, I'll give you an explanation later. I talked at a conference and I talked about how it ended and everyone went, oh, because a lot of them hadn't watched it, so I thought I'd better check this time. But of course, he falls in love with his intelligent agent and then realises that his intelligent agent has relationships with millions of other people as well. How do we get initiated to this? How did we come about it as general consumers? So, certainly October in 2011, Apple launched Siri, which was really the first one that became accessible to the majority of us, certainly on a mobile device, in that mainstream way. And since then, we've really sort of seen that whole space blow up. So I've put together this timeline of all the devices across all the major intelligent agent platforms. And it's only getting busier, right? So subsequent to this, and this was at the end of last year, Amazon announced 12 devices in one day, okay, from a microwave to a clock that have intelligent agents built into them. So this space is really taking off. And it's really interesting to see from the different perspectives, the different platforms, the way they prioritise different devices. So mobile tends to lead, but of course that's not going to happen with Alexa. And then watches and cars as other places where you're likely to interact with these agents. And then right through to the smart speaker in home and so on. So you see this very interesting evolution of the rollout of these devices. And of course, if you go into a particular ecosystem, then you can see how dominant it can become. So looking at the Apple ecosystem, for example, where it's really on pretty much every device now, and you can interact with it in some way. And through that ecosystem lock-in, whether it's Apple or Google or Alexa, Amazon or whoever it might be, you get that cross of services. And we'll talk a bit about multi-services shortly. But really what we're talking about at the base level is it hears something, it runs that through a processor, through an operating system. It needs a network connection in most of the cases to then communicate that back and to get you an answer or get you a response, and then it says something or it displays something. So that's really the core of it. The four main platforms that we're talking about today are the ones that I talked about before. So Siri from Apple, Google Assistant from, surprisingly, Google, Alexa from Amazon, and Cortana from Microsoft. So we did that, so we'll skip that. I thought you needed a break. So really one of the first things that I want you to take away is, think about the ecosystems and what are the devices that your customers or your clients or whoever it might be are going to be interacting with. And do they deal with multiples of these intelligent agents, and how does that work for them? Okay? We'll talk a bit later about the specifics of each of them and how we can achieve that. So the interaction, as we said, it goes through that sort of sequence. And now we're starting to add other things, other inputs and other intelligence or opportunities for that intelligence to leverage. So video is a key one of that. So being able to have computer vision, looking out from a device and seeing things in its environment. and also gestural aspects as well. So being able to gesture at a certain device and control it in different ways. And then on the output side, of course, we have a screen, very useful, and things like haptics as well, where we can send messages in other ways to convey that information in different ways to people. So the interaction there, one of the key issues is the invisibility of a lot of this stuff. We forget that it's there, or we don't know how to not initiate the conversation with an intelligent agent, but to actually articulate our request. And at the moment, it takes a lot of thought to varying degrees. Some of them are far more structured than others. Alexa tends to be far more structured in the command that you give it. And then engagement, that syntax as I was talking about, and then things like continued conversation, where you might ask a device a question, who is the President of the United States, and then without restarting the question or restating the question, follow up with another question that references that. So, and why is this hair so orange, or whatever it might be, right? So the answer from the first and the interaction from the first relates to the follow-up conversation. I think one of the most interesting things that we're certainly going to have to deal with over the next bunch of time is that middle point there. Am I engaging with the brand directly, or is it a mediated experience? Okay. So the role of the intelligent agent in our life, is it there for us? Is it our intelligent agent? Is that how we're going to think about these things? Or is it a branded intelligent agent? Is it the telco's intelligent agent? Is it the airline's intelligent agent? Is it Uniting's intelligent agent, right? Who is that operating on behalf of? And do I want the personality of that agent, or do I want to deal with my agent and that agent can deal with all those agents? Okay, so our relationship is going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And there's a bunch of issues with this stuff, and we'll talk about those a bit later on as well. And then integration in our day-to-day lives. Do we start to adopt these things really and start to leverage and start to use them? And it's one of those things, certainly I've found, is that the more you use it, the more you continue to use that and use it in different ways. So is it just one of these things where we have to assist the market generally to educate them and make them aware of these opportunities so that it does broaden out and it becomes another mainstream interaction? Multimodal interaction is, of course, a huge opportunity. We looked at some of the different things there. Am I looking at the screen for response? Am I looking at different aspects? Am I, in the case of HoloLens, a really interesting one where you're looking at having an augmented reality experience, you've got gestures that you're engaging with that augmented reality experience, and then you've also got Cortana there to assist you as well as an intelligent agent. So this combination of things that can make an experience very powerful, because you're not navigating through menus to get to that, that particular thing, and can draw on a whole bunch of information as an intelligent agent that might feed into a workflow or whatever it might be to enhance that experience significantly. So I think an AR, is going to be a very interesting space in the coming years around this stuff with multimodal. We've got that trickiness at the moment, and certainly I'm not saying it's an issue necessarily, but things like Sonos come out with support for two. Well, they're saying they're supporting two. The Google Assistant support hasn't actually come out, I believe, yet. But you can talk to it through two assistants. So which one do you use? Do you just have one in the house? Or do you have a music service with one assistant and then your smart home is on the other assistant? So this is where some devices might support many assistants, and that could be to a benefit in various ways. Did you see the Facebook portal? A friend of mine worked on this, but very interesting device that came out. Unfortunately, probably very badly timed after the whole Cambridge Analytica issue. And of course, on top of that, there's a camera right at the top. And so one of the amazing things that this can do is actually follow you around. So if you're talking, you're having a video conference with your family, you're in the kitchen cooking, as every classic promotional video ever does. You can talk to your family and wander around the kitchen. As you go to the fridge, the camera tracks you, right? And then Cambridge Analytica came along, and the whole fact that Facebook was tracking you via video and computer vision, and sort of just freaked everyone out. And the interesting thing is that it's got this little clip on top of the camera so you can put it on. But it's like that thing where it's this individually made thing that's clearly not integrated into the product. And I can only imagine that it was created the week after Cambridge Analytica came out and they went, oh shit, we better put this thing on. I don't know, but you know, it's that sort of reactiveness, because these things, if they're in our home, we do build a relationship with it, and trust is obviously critical to those relationships, especially with an intelligent agent. But again, you have here a combination of Facebook's intelligent agent and Alexa. So think about how your audience wants to interact with these devices, these intelligent agents, and what the variety of that interaction can be. And you know, certainly with a whole bunch of technologies, whether it's smart homes, wearables, whatever it might be, we're getting to this point where there's this whole matrix of things that grows out. When we start combining this stuff, the opportunities blow out, but also the things that we can't necessarily take into consideration blow out. So, you know, explore that as much as you can, but sometimes, you know, just gets away from us. These are the ways that you interact with the main systems there, so I won't say them aloud because it'll probably trigger a whole bunch of devices. What's interesting, I think, here is, you know, OK Google came out first, I believe, from Google, but they seem to have gone, oh shit, everyone else is doing Hey, we better do Hey as well. So, you know, do you get confused? Okay, I won't say it, but OK is actually quite a tricky thing. There's a lot of O's in there, right? So even the way that you say these things, and Amazon have certainly spoken about the A one, and that X in there is there for a particular reason, which I'll talk about shortly. And then we're also starting to understand our different types of behaviour, right? So the whisper, which when I was preparing this talk, I'd never really thought of what a whisper is. And it's really talking without using your vocal cords. And so think about it later on, or do it now to yourself. But it's quite interesting. I've never thought about it that way. Maybe you all know, I don't know. And then there's the different types of interaction. So for the next bunch of stuff, I'm going to focus in on the Apple ecosystem, just because I wanted to look at a particular one. But with the Apple Watch, there's actually 3 different ways, right, that you can interact with it. You can push and hold the side button. You can obviously say, hey. And in the last version, they brought out the raise and talk. So I can raise and just say a command. And that seems to be a bit finicky. It sort of feels like the one they're playing with and maybe isn't quite solid yet, but they're trying it. But the first 2 obviously work quite solidly. So 3 different ways to interact with an intelligent agent on one device. What are the different contexts for that? And obviously AirPods have come out recently with the support for no tapping or anything. You can just say, hey, dingus. And so all the devices, and again focused in on the Apple ecosystem here, that support your intelligent agent. And I looked through them all and actually went and almost audited the ways that you can interact with it. So on AirPods, you do a double tap on a particular one, whichever one you've selected, you can configure that. On your Apple Watch, we just talked about, press and hold is the press one, but you can do it through multiple ways. If you've got an Apple TV, then you press and hold the whole time you're giving the command, which is different, right? Different to the others. Press and hold on iPhone, on iPad. You tap on your CarPlay in device, and also you press for your laptop. And then what happens is you, of course, walk home and you say the Hey Siri command, and all the devices light up, right? Who's had that experience in home where everything comes to life? And quite quickly, they do negotiate it with it. And it's something that Apple have improved recently, where all the devices negotiate between them, and what tends to happen is it goes to the HomePod. So the HomePod is considered sort of like the master device if you have one. So the problem with that is that the HomePod, because it doesn't have a screen and it's not actually as feature rich or as feature compatible with all the stuff that your iPhone can do, will sometimes take the command but then say it can't do the thing that you're trying to do, right? So it's that frustrating thing of, I'll go into the bedroom, my phone is on my bedside, I'll say, hey, can you tell me the time, or whatever. You know, sorry, that was a very bad example. And the one in the living room will hear me because the microphone's so good and go, well, I can't do that. And so I'm sitting there frustrated that it doesn't happen. So hopefully these little issues that we might, again, not expect to happen eventuate. And then again, staying with the Apple ecosystem, for the moment, it's starting to broaden out. And Amazon with Alexa skills has always very much supported an open ecosystem and anybody being able to create their own skills and stuff like that. So that's always been powerful. But now we're starting to, and Assistant, Google and Assistant after that. But certainly Apple has taken a different approach recently with Siri shortcuts. So
the next 393 bus to Little Bay departs in 30 minutes, followed by services approximately every 22 minutes.
So it's a nice little thing. I can just say, bus home, as you see on that top line. So I'll say, hey Siri, bus home, and it'll tell me what the buses are to my place. Now, obviously I've set this up. It's essentially a voice macro. I could say, take me to Timbuktu and configure it to do this, to get that specific set of data and to bring that back to me both or through audio and also on screen. So really handy. So there's a lot of functionality there, but it's really quite complex. The interface isn't great for shortcuts yet. Sorry. Is that you, Eric? Sorry, was that me triggering your device or you asking a question? So we get that sort of thing where it's starting to expand out to other people, or us as designers or whoever we might be, being able to create these things and to leverage services that we might have already designed to this new medium or this new way of interaction. Okay. Now, it's not to say that you should just take what you do and put it on voice, and that's the answer. Obviously, you need to reconsider it for this, but it's something to think about and an opportunity that you might be able to take that you couldn't previously. So the identity. One of the more fascinating things, right, because these are intelligent agents, these are people that these things that we interact with. What is the personality for these things? So there's a whole bunch of aspects of personality, and I'm not going to go through them all now. Thanks, Joe. Waving. But you can see them all there. And if we look at them in and of themselves, the visual identities of these things is quite interesting, right? So you have Siri, you have Google Assistant, Alexa, Cortana. Interestingly, all of them, the names that they came from. So Siri is from SRI International, a company that predated the creation of Siri. Google Assistant's pretty obvious, right? Alexa, so again, the reason they did it was this hard, what is it? I always forget. It was chosen due to the fact that it has a hard consonant with the X and therefore can get recognised with a higher precision. So that's why they don't need the hey, right? And it makes a huge difference when you just have to say Alexa instead of hey, whatever it is. And Cortana will come to shortly. Now, first of all, Siri was the first one to be both male and female voices. Google Assistant has caught up. And Alexa and Cortana are both very female. Microsoft have done a bunch of research that they refer to in terms of why the female persona has been used for Cortana. And we'll talk a bit more about that shortly. And this is Cortana. So who was a Halo player? Right. So it's quite interesting to get the backstory to these. And if you've ever heard Genevieve Bell talk about this sort of stuff, it is, why would this intelligent agent ask these questions or act in this way? And Cortana was the intelligent agent, the assistant for Chief in the Halo game. And Microsoft were looking at a different name for their intelligent agent for right across their products. And there was a huge pushback from the community to say, actually, we should use Cortana. Cortana is not somebody I would put up on a screen in her whole, in what she wears as a person. It's just not appropriate. So it's really interesting that they've gone with that character and now expanding it out to a broader market. I think this was really interesting. This is based on over 4,500 subjects who selected the voice that they deemed to be genderless.
Hi, I'm Q, the world's first genderless voice assistant. Think of me like Siri or Alexa, but neither male nor female. I'm created for a future where we are no longer defined by gender, but rather how we define ourselves. My voice was recorded by people who neither identify as male nor female, and then altered to sound gender neutral, putting my voice between 145 and 175 hertz.
Okay, so really interesting. There's something to explore that space. I chaired the mobile industry group, mobile HCI conference industry group last year in Barcelona. We had this great talk by the guy who'd done the intelligent agent systems for both Sony's Xperia and Oakley's glasses, the Pace glasses. And it was great, really interesting to hear about the different personalities, the different budgets, the different impacts for two things that are essentially the same size. So think about that identity of service and brand, or whatever your customers or your product might be. And so the impact. What is the result of all of this? So my son, who's now 5, my usual Saturday morning is running around the house going, "Hey Siri, add toilet paper to the shopping list." And my son thinks it's fascinating to go, "Hey Siri, add Lego to the shopping list." So every week I get Lego on the shopping list, so I try and avoid that. Google have done a project with Disney where you read the Disney book and Alexa will add in sound effects at various points in the story that obviously align with the story. Quite nice. Alexa has this really the magic word thing, so it doesn't punish kids if they don't say please, but it will give them a thank you if they do, so there's a positive reinforcement there. And there's a great service, I was talking to the guys at Amazon, from the New Zealand Blind Foundation, where blind people can access a whole range of books and magazines and really go back to the place they were in the book the last time they were there, search by author, search by title, all sorts of things. Sorry, am I dropping in and out because I'm moving around a lot? Okay. And then Stephen Collins, who many of you would know Stephen Collins from the UX industry. Stephen's got a brother-in-law who has cognitive impairment, a visual impairment, etc., and came to live with Stephen and his wife and his family. And he had some lovely stories about how really simple the introduction of intelligent agents has changed his life living alongside of them. And one of them is that he still asks how the weather was, or how the weather is in the place that he used to live with his parents who looked after him for many years. So he's got that constant connection back to place for him. And Stephen's also talked about how sometimes he's able to manage his own entertainment, right? He can go to his room, he can ask for certain music to be played that he enjoys. And in fact, what's happened is that because the service is now offered that you can find about when that artist is in town, he's actually told the rest of the family about when that artist is coming to visit, and the whole family will go along and see this live music act. So it's really changed their family dynamic in an interesting way. So think about how the different people that interact with the service, how they can leverage it for their particular needs and in interesting ways. So the imminent future, what's coming up? What have we got? So one of the things that I've always sort of been down on Amazon about is that they're not on the mobile device, and the mobile device is a primary platform. And those of you who might know me know that I've been in mobile for a very long time and really enjoy it and still see it as a proponent. And I thought Alexa can't really get there, even though you introduce a clock and a microwave, etc., with these things. But now they're coming out with headphones, so they're slowly covering all the aspects which people might interact with them as a primary interface. And recently there's been a lot of discussion around headphones and intelligent agents in headphones and the wearables and the things that are with us all the time, whether it's a watch, headphones or other, is really the battleground for these companies to be playing in. I think this is an interesting one. You know, the ability to take in a whole range of information about your context and to use that information. Obviously, in this one, in a marketing context of selling your tissues and all sort of stuff from Amazon. And this, I thought, was the perfect complement to that. So this is a really interesting project that is actually something that you attach to the top. So it's called Alias, and it's an intermediary, right, to the device. So it sits on top, and you talk to that, or it filters everything going in. It plays white noise to your Alexa or your Google Home the whole time, So Alexa and Google Home can't hear anything that's going on in your home, but when you use the trigger word for the alias, it then passes through that information. So fascinating that things are coming up to sort of circumvent various aspects of these devices. Mycroft AI, I think, one thing that is very evident, or hopefully has been very evident, is that these platforms, these intelligent agents, are owned by platforms and owned by big tech corps, right? Mycroft AI is intended to be a much more open source approach to this thing, so quite interesting to follow that. And of course, we've got at the next stage, or in adjunct to, the whole social robotics aspect, where you've got a social robot that can interact with you in a physical form and respond to you in a whole range of interesting ways, as well as being an intelligent agent in and of itself. And then there's, I'm going to finish on Mica. So Mica, this is Magic Leap, so the augmented reality experience. And Mica is their intelligent agent who can appear on command, so be in the room with you, obviously through an augmented experience, and interact with you. And if you haven't seen the videos of this, I haven't got them in here, but it's fascinating to watch the level of animation that they can do to bring her to life and interact at certain points, do things, and then go away or disappear and do those. So thank you very much for your time tonight. I suppose this is the key takeaways that we were talking about. Understanding the intelligent agent ecosystems, both within those ecosystems and between those ecosystems. Looking at those devices and their prevalence across the market, especially the Australian market, and then think about how your audience wants to interact, how you can leverage current services, what's the identity of those services that you want to portray, either as a brand or whatever it might be, and how can we accommodate as many people as possible into using these things. So, as usual, we end on a quote. But it is that thing of, this is, as with all design, this is a new frontier for design. It's a new opportunity, and I think we'll play a key role in defining how those experiences play out for people. Thank you.
Let's see if it likes me today. Thank you, Ollie. Questions?
Thanks, Ollie. It was such a great talk.
Ask me a hard question?
No, I had a question.
Softball?
Right now.
One I told you to ask me.
No, I was just wondering, how do you think brands can tap onto these various ecosystems? Say, I'm a bank, and I can say stuff like, hey Siri, what's the balance in my account? Or, hey Siri, can you pay Joe $50? And how we might design for those things.
Yeah, to be honest, I see a lot of similarity to what we did with mobile in that we started very simply with the functional, and we gained trust through that. Certainly when mobile banking came out, it didn't have all the marketing bits around the edge. It focused on, I want to make a transfer, right? Now we're enriching mobile experiences in a whole bunch of different ways. But I think the same will be with voice. A lot of stuff will tend to focus on the functional. And there's been some examples already. So I think it was Disney, but I could be wrong, with Alexa probably about 2 years ago. There started to be this ad experience in an interaction that wasn't called for. And I think people are far more sensitive in that sort of environment and that sort of interaction to that. So brands have to be really careful that they position it, I think, starting with the functional. And they can make the functional engaging, but they can't just make another advertising platform, right? It has to be something there. And then the decision is going to be, what's the value for the customer versus the value for the company? Is it simply another channel that we're at, and therefore we've got visibility from everything? Or is there something that we can do to enhance that particular experience for our brand that adds value to?
Hey, Ollie, it's such a fantastic talk, by the way. Probably following on from that question, just an observation, but what's your take on, so like obviously moving forward, Apple using fingerprint identity and face identity. So if you take that as a natural progression, you'd imagine that voice activation in terms of security would be the next thing. But what about, impersonation? I mean, that is a clear, there's so many people that can impersonate other people in a voice. What's your thoughts around that?
You'd be old enough to recognise my voice is my passport. You ever seen Sneakers? Yeah, it's a great movie. And I think voice has this tricky aspect to it. And certainly when the Google Wear came out, because it was the first watch that had the Google Assistant, well, it wasn't called Google Assistant at the time, but it built in, I was very, look, why would people talk to their watch in public? Like, I'm not going to go, hey, Google, message my wife, I love her, or something. It's just not, it's the social context. And I think a lot of this voice interaction stuff, you get the sense that somebody's driving down, the 280 down to Silicon Valley and they've got a very quiet environment and they can talk directly to experience. But I don't think voice would be used as a security element, just because they have the other ones now, and biometrically they're probably, I don't know, but they're probably more secure, and they're much more subtle, right? Like to interact with voice is much more obvious to the people around you in that context of use. So I don't think it's going to be a huge thing. I think, though, on the contrary, we'll get more comfortable with people talking to their intelligent agent, and here's a great example, right? Her, as a movie, where people do start to do that, and I start to do it. I'm still aware of who's around me, but I do it more and more, and I find the usefulness is there. So I don't think it'll be huge. It might be a factor in security, but I don't think it'll be the dominant one. But that's just mine.
I think we got time for one more.
That's because I gave the uniting plug in.
I was going to thank you for that. So what about, there was some quotes on here that you didn't want to talk about just in case you triggered every device. And so what happens about that saturation and that differentiation? Because what that could potentially mean is that people try and differentiate so much that you've got more fragmentation and then it goes wobbly very quickly. So can you comment on that? Yeah,
look, I think my expectation, and that's all it is that these systems will get better. The accuracy is increasing now, significantly. Month over month, the accuracy of detection is getting better. And I think the other problem that's being started to be solved by certainly Google Assistant and so on is multi-user, right? So home is a classic example. We've got our HomePod or we've got our Alexa in the home. I want to talk to it and ask it questions about my day or whatever it might be. But I don't want my music influenced by my 5-year-old who wants to play, with the Wiggles or whatever, right? So I think that's a key factor of it will understand us or who we are as our identity, and therefore there'll be less crossover necessarily. And that might be per ecosystem as well. So it might know that I'm talking to Alexa more easily than just necessarily a command maybe because of other aspects of context. But that's further out, I think. I think multi-user is a big aspect to solving the problem.
And with that, thank you, Ollie. Now, I just want you for just another minute